worried I'm going to drool. Well, good afternoon. I'm Gail Kerr, the Tennessean's local news columnist, and we're here once again, as we are every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, to bring you a little commentary from the opinion writers at the Tennessean. I'm here with Frank Daniels III, who's our Community Voices editor and one of our editorial page writers. And we're going to start today with what I think is kind of a passion of yours, Frank, if I'm not mistaken. Our lead editorial today was on the failure of the NHL to settle the walkout, the strike. Well, it's not a strike, it's a knockout. And which has left the Predators in the dark and downtown business is hurting. And I thought it was a great editorial. As you just said a minute ago, that's the we speaking, that's the Tennessean's view. But tell me what it said and why, obviously you are a hockey fan.
I am a hockey fan, and I write that both from the standpoint that our community needs the tax dollars, the entertainment, the people walking up and down Lower Broadway. I mean, our businesses they stand to lose several $1 million of financial opportunity as long as the hockey players aren't playing. The hockey players are locked out by owners trying to reach an agreement around how much of revenue each side should get, and you know, I don't think any of us care. I think all we want to see is that arena that we pay for every year, and
absolutely,
and are expecting to be filled. Out in the difficulty we had coming back. Now, fortunately, in Raleigh, the Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup the next year, so hockey became a big deal.
Sure.
But you know, you can't count on winning the hockey.
We want one of those, though. We want one of those.
But you can't count on that the year after a lockout. And I think that I worry about the momentum. You know, we lost one of our best defenders to the Wild, and we need to get those guys out on the ice and playing and skating towards a playoff again.
I mean, we went through such a difficult time with the team when the ownership sort of fell apart here, and they've just really rebuilt it. It's fun to go, and it's a fan-oriented thing. Even, I mean, I still can't quite figure hockey out, I'll be honest with you, but I love to go. I really enjoy the game.
Well, the best thing to do is go with somebody that knows hockey.
Well, there you go. I take that as a standing invitation, Frank.
Anytime. And you do have to admire what, I mean, same general manager, same coach, the new ownership team is very dedicated to opening up its doors and its arms to embrace hockey fans and businesses and try to make the experience there a great hockey experience. But this is, you know, hockey's going to be tenuous in Nashville.
Right.
This is a football town.
Yeah. We're definitely a football town.
Hockey has to keep its, you know, it has to keep a tight grip.
It's got to be frustrating for Mayor Carl Dean and the council who have renegotiated this lease twice now, and very difficult. You know, lots of hoops to jump through. You know, we just did a story about the businesses downtown who say so far they're hanging in, but it's going to be pretty cold in the next month, and I don't know.
January's tough without hockey, I would imagine. You know, Christmas and tourism will sustain, I would imagine, but January and February have been the months where hockey has made a big difference to downtown businesses and really to sales taxes all around. And the convention center's not open. A lot of the amenities are not in full flower downtown that we've invested in.
Yeah.
Hockey's one of those things that we invest in regularly, and I think we would all stand a good stead to hear the scrape of skates on ice.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, that's a good poetic way to end that subject. Speaking of January, and talk about a tenuous transition there, but one of the other stories we've been following this week is Senator Bob Corker suddenly emerged nationwide as this huge voice for trying to keep us from that fiscal cliff that everybody's talking about. And again, y'all popped out with an editorial very quickly on that. Talk about what he did, what he wrote, and what you think about that.
And I'm curious to hear your view as well, because you tend to come maybe from a little more liberal position than I do. Bob Corker has been talking about his interest in creating a more rational way to tax Americans for 2 years now. I think that, you know, he is a reasonably moderate in today's world Republican who is more interested in how things work than whether or not it fits some litmus test.
Yeah.
And he came out with his new tax plan, said that he would not, he's more concerned with working for the people of Tennessee than following some pledge from Grover Norquist. And so he's come out saying, we're gonna make this work. Now, is his plan the end all be all? He would be the first to admit it's not, but it is one of the first comprehensive plans to come out around tax reform, looking at closing loopholes, rationalizing rates, thinking progressively about what kind of tax code would make sense going forward.
To me, it was, I mean, I like Senator Corker. I voted for him twice, and even when he was had a Democratic opponent, I'm not always as liberal as you think I am. I think he's very reasonable in his approach, and to me, it was like, this is a start. And I really admire anybody that is willing to stand up to party or, you know, the expectations of these anti-tax pledges and say, wait a minute, we got to work together. We got to think about a different way. It was the first, most specific thing I've read that stayed away from the usual rhetoric that you hear every afternoon on NPR, and really got down to some what could be a beginning. I thought we did an online poll, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but people were overwhelmingly supportive of him for saying, I'm not going to hold to my tax pledge. And I thought that was, I think people see through that it's sort of a gimmicky thing. I mean, they're right. The only pledge they really should make is when they get sworn in to follow the Constitution and to, you know, do what taxpayers want. And, you know, the fiscal cliff thing, it does scare me. There's a lot of things in there that are really quite serious. I got an email this week from a domestic violence program here that they're looking at losing most of their federal funding if that happens. And that affects, you know, women and children by the droves. And that's just one example. There are many more. So
yeah, I think Tennessee stands to lose $750 million in federal funding if the fiscal cliff triggers are hit. You know, raising taxes will not solve any of these problems. But, you know, making our tax code more rational will, closing loopholes. Even the mortgage deduction loophole, if you look at it, and I love my mortgage deduction, but it may be it's time for that to go away. I mean, everything should be on the table, and I think that's what Corker is saying. We don't want to go to draconian marginal tax rates. I think that has proven not to be, regardless of what you might read from pundits saying, oh, well, you know, we people were fine when it was a 91% marginal tax rate. Well, that's BS. You know, giving 91 cents to the government at some point. I mean, that's a Huey Long kind of argument. That's not a rational argument for making this economy be productive. So it's not about raising taxes. It's about making tax rates reasonable so that our tax revenues go up.
Well, the other big hot topic that we're still talking about, we were talking about it last Wednesday when I was here with Ted Rayburn. Once again, the Metro Council is going to revisit whether they should give themselves health care for life. And I've written about this twice in the last week. I usually try not to do that, but this one just gets under my skin.
Yes, it does.
And I have to say, you push the button to the public about this, and my emails just flow in. People are very angry about it. What's your take on this? Do they just not get it?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head in your last column saying that they don't get it. This isn't about whether it's 25% or 15% or 30% or whatever percent. It's just wrong.
Right. It's just wrong. It's a benefit that nobody else gets. I mean, what gets under my skin is they did this even as they were cutting what Metro employees get. And granted, Metro employees, the pension system needed to be addressed. They were just spending too much money on it. It's not a benefit that anybody in the real world gets anymore. But health insurance for life for anybody is just absurd. One suggestion I had today from my editor was that we should look at what state lawmakers get in terms of these kind of perks and what Congress gets. And I think that's a really good idea.
Of course, we would all like to have Congress's medical benefits.
Yes, we would. Which is very interesting that they're the ones who are discussing the affordable health plan and how to implement it.
Well, it's all affordable when somebody else pays for it.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Well, it's been a very busy week where there's a lot more coming up. We're going to be talking in coming days about education vouchers, which the governor and his task force are calling scholarship opportunities, which I love. That's going to be a huge topic coming up. Look for that on our editorial pages in my column. I'm doing some research now. There's a new guy who's thinking about running for mayor, Bill Freeman.
Yeah.
And my Sunday column, I'm looking back to 1988 when Bill Freeman actually went to the FBI with information that one of our most prominent Democratic elected officials, Sheriff Ate Thomas, was soliciting bribes. And it caused the beginning of a downfall of what was essentially our boss hog. So
Yeah.
that's some
Well,
stuff coming up.
that'd be
Always
interesting.
look for us on Tennessean.com. And here every week and Wednesday at 3 o'clock, 2 out of our 3 opinion writers will be right here to tell you what's going on and what we think about it. And we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you.